So Ecclesiastes 4, I did not change the title other than I added a little bit of information. And the title is Oppression and God, but also it's Mother's Day. Now I'm looking at this chapter and I'm thinking, okay, it's Mother's Day. Is there something in this chapter that relates to our mothers? Okay? And especially with the title Oppression, I was thinking, that works. It does. Oppression and Mother's Day. Let's put those together and see what kind of lesson we can learn. When we were younger, we thought our mothers were oppressing us all the time, okay? But that's not where I'm going, okay? Actually, the Mother's Day section of this doesn't come until close to the end. Not the very end, but getting close to it. So, Ecclesiastes 4, Oppression and God, Mother's Day 2025. Verse 1. Then I looked again at all the acts of oppression which are being done under the sun. And behold, I saw the tears of the oppressed, the tears of the oppressed, and they had no one to comfort them. And on the side of their oppressors was power, but they had no one to comfort them. This is a really real life set of words. Okay, there are those that are doing the oppressing, and they have power in which they can accomplish it. There's instances all over the world, and I'm going to use one example, but all over the world of where there are militants that are attacking Christians, that are oppressing people. There's communism, there's dictatorships. All of these fit into this category. But a very recent one, and that's what I'm going to bring up because I just got this news about a week ago, in Nigeria on Palm Sunday, April 13 of 2025, in Zeke Village in Plateau State, there were at least 56 people, including 15 children, were killed. 103 homes were burned. Other notable incidents reported by ICC in 2025 include clergy abductions and killing in Endo, in Kendra, and Plateau States. More than 230 homes burned or destroyed. At least 10 churches damaged or razed. Many during Sunday services or overnight attacks. Nigerian authorities have yet to deliver adequate protection or justice. This is the world we live in. Okay? These are things that are actually happening now, and we think of it as oppression, and it is oppression. And sometimes we see these things and we wonder, God, how do you allow this to go on? This does not seem to really make any sense. There is something about it that just doesn't seem to fit. You are an almighty, all-powerful God, and these sort of things are taking place. And our mind immediately goes to, these poor, poor people. There's nothing they can do. They have no power. They have no way of defending themselves. So what is it? What is it about this type of oppression that God would allow it? As we're going to go on, we're going to see far more oppression, but in a way that we not normally see it. Because in Matthew chapter 5, verses 11 and 12, blessed are you when people insult you and persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward in heaven is great, in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. See, our minds automatically go to this life as being the priority. It's not. Let me just explain this a second. Our period of time in this life, which is more than likely less than 100 years, compared to the endless time of everlasting life, there's really very little to compare here. Because sin is in the world, persecution is going to take place. God cares for his people. Every one of those Christians in Nigeria that were killed are rejoicing. They are. I can assure you that that is a reality. How do I know? Because the Word of God says so in Revelation 11:18. And the nations were enraged, and the wrath came, and the time came for the dead to be judged, and the time to reward your bondservants, the prophets, and the saints, and those who fear your name, the small and the great, and to destroy those who destroy the earth. See, that day is coming, and for some of those, that the beginning has already happened, in which they are in the presence of Almighty God, where all of their troubles and trials are gone. There's also, in heaven, there's this, like, I don't want to call it levels or stages. It's more like levels, but probably not exactly the way that we see it, because there's rewards for our life here, and we're all different, so the rewards will be somewhat different. How can you possibly have a difference in rewards but complete joy and happiness at the same time? That's hard for us to understand, and I don't need to understand that. I just know that those that were killed for their faith receive great rewards. No question about it. And I think there are people that will go into heaven on the skin of their teeth, you might say, and they will suffer loss. Paul talks about that. But the oppression is real. God allows it to happen because he does have a purpose. I don't know his entire purpose by any stretch of the imagination, okay? But there's a reason that he allows these things to happen. We see them as terrible, as horrific, and they are. Humanly speaking, they are. But in God's way of looking at it, they are not. But Solomon, when he's writing Ecclesiastes, he is looking at it primarily from the world point of view. He hints, and then gets towards the end, he brings it all together. But that's not till chapter 12. Okay, so we got a little ways to go. So verse 2 and 3. So I congratulated the dead who are already dead more than the living who are still living. But better off in both of them is the one who has never existed, who has never seen the evil activity that is done under the sun. Now this is totally from a human perspective. Solomon, wisest man that ever lived. From a human perspective, he's seeing this. The dead, boy, they got it made. Okay, they're already dead. They don't know worry about what's going on. But better than those who are dead are those that were never born, that never existed. Because they don't have to deal with any of it at any time. But the world has nothing to offer. Because he talks about this, never seen the evil activity that is done under the sun. Throughout all of history, throughout all of the world, there are those that will never see it because they never existed. But for those who are living, those that are striving after the wind, the world will never provide what is needed to satisfy, to correct, or to provide justice. The world will never offer that. The world will never provide that. And that's really what Solomon is getting us to see. Verse 4. I have seen every labor and every skill which is done as the result of rivalry between the man and his neighbor. This too is vanity and striving after a wind. This Solomon must not have been a capitalist. Okay, because he's basically saying that this competition between this man and that man is worthless. It's no good. But we look at capitalism and say it's this challenge of competing against each other that brings out the best. So you try to figure this out. How is this? It says every labor and every skill which is done is the result of rivalry. And there's a lot of truth in that. Of course, with Solomon, it is a lot of truth. Right? Because we all strive to better ourselves in comparison to those around us. That's the only comparison we have. So those around us that achieve this, we have a natural tendency to want to achieve more. You bake the best chocolate chip cookies except for mine. That rivalry's there. And Solomon is saying all of this really in the long run has no meaning. You're just striving after the wind. But then also weapons of war. Take a look at history. The weapons that were used in war. This one comes up with throwing rocks. The next one says, hey, I get a bow and an arrow. The guys with the rocks, they got a chance. So the guys that are now had the rocks now have shields. Okay, so you can shoot your arrows, but you won't hit me. And this goes on and on and on. And it's still going on today. And it's the rivalry that does it. Verse 5, the fool folds his hand and consumes his own flesh. Now we talk about the fool. He just sits there, he folds his hands, he does nothing, and he consumes his own flesh. Almost like, what are you talking about? It's kind of a screwy statement. I think really what he's referring to is those that have much wealth, but they didn't earn it. They inherited it, they won the lottery, whatever, right? And what they do when a person gets in that situation, and I've seen this actually happen in many occasions, especially with small and mid-sized companies, and the children inherit it because dad died or dad retired, and generally within 5 years that company's bankrupt. That's the norm. Right. There are exceptions, but the norm is in 5 years or less, that company, no matter how successful it was, is no more because they just consumed their own flesh. Verse 6, one hand full of rest is better than two fists full of labor and striving after wind. To be able to rest, to be able to actually take the time to rest, to be able to have the opportunity to rest instead of constantly, nonstop being busy. Why are we so busy? Because there's one thing that as human beings we love to do, and that's hoard. Some of us are hoarders more than others. Every one of us are hoarders. Now, how can I dare say that? Because I guarantee you, you go home and you look around the house and you will find objects that you really have no need for whatsoever. Never had, never will, in the future. You can clean out closets, you can clean out sheds, clean out basements, clean out living rooms, bedrooms, whatever. You will find stuff that you never use. But you kept. Do you know why you kept it? Because I might need it one day.
Because as soon as you throw it away.
That's the one day. Okay? One day is tomorrow. Okay? Because that's when you need it, but you need it tomorrow. But just remember that tomorrow never comes. It's never tomorrow. So the folly of hoarding. And I put myself in that category. I can go through and I can find probably a truckload of stuff that I have no reason to have. Verses 7 and 8. Then I looked again at vanity under the sun. There was a certain man without a dependent, having neither son nor brother, yet there was no end to his labor. Indeed, his eyes were not satisfied with riches, and he never asked, and for whom am I laboring and depriving myself of pleasure? This too is vanity and is the grievous task. Now you got the selfish person in the world who has no dependents. There's nobody coming after them. Now, most of us with families, there's a period of time in which we do a lot of things for the benefit of our children. And that should be. Right? But if there are no children, and somebody is doing all of these things to try to accumulate more, Solomon asked the question, why? Why are you trying to accumulate more? Because there is no such thing as enough. I just need a little more. But what does selfishness lead to? It leads to a state of loneliness. I've known people that have been very successful in life from a business perspective, but had no family or the family has abandoned them. They have very few, if any, friends. They have no interest in societal things. But they live in the selfish mindset, and now they're lonely because they have nothing. They have no one. Verses 9 through 12. Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. For if either of them fails, the one will lift up his companion. But woe to the one who fails and is not another to lift him up. Furthermore, if two lie down together, they keep warm. But how can you keep warm alone? And if one can overpower him who is alone, two can resist him. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly torn apart. Now, the cord of 3 strands one is a very familiar saying. The rest of it isn't quite as familiar, but that last one part is. But I think Solomon is really pointing out here is the advantage of having more than one. And this goes back to the Garden of Eden. Because in Genesis 2:18, then the Lord said, it is not good for man to be alone. I will make him a helper suitable for him. And that word helper here is not something that you would consider as an equal or as the same, but more as a counterpart. See, because when God created Eve, he created someone that basically would make up for the lacking part of man. And this also vice versa is true. Because the two independently have this ability. The two together have a much greater ability. Because men and women, contrary to popular beliefs, are not the same. Right? They don't look the same, they don't act the same, they don't think the same, they don't do the same. That's just a whole host of things that are not the same. Okay? But they all benefit each other. They all have something to offer that is greater together than they ever could achieve independently. That is a reality, and this is where I think Solomon is going, and it's also how Mother's Day can come into this whole thing. Hey, that fit kind of nicely. It's going to turn right into it. Okay? So first of all, we're going to look at what is a godly mother. Okay? The worldly mother, I'm really not interested in going there. That's really not what we're teaching here. But what is a godly mother? And lo and behold, the same guy that wrote Ecclesiastes wrote Proverbs. And this is from Proverbs 31. So we have the same author in both lessons tied together, and they make sense together because the two is better than one. So we have to have a mother and a father as a benefit. But what is a godly mother? And then we're going to see the oppression of it. She is one of great value. She's trustworthy. She strives to do good for her family. She works with her hands. She will travel to get what is needed. She with others. She makes wise investments. She will get up at night and care for a child. She will not fearful of things out of her control. She speaks wisdom with kindness. She is praised by her husband and her children. And all of these things together is a godly woman. Right? This is not the modern day woman. Because there's a whole bunch of things in this category that would not fit. Because this is a mother who takes her role as mother as being a very serious thing, as a sacrificial thing, as somebody that is going to do whatever is needed for the family, because the family comes first. She's always the last one to take the extra piece of pie. She's the one that will leave this and leave that alone so that the child can have it. She's the one that does all the extra things just for the benefit of her family. And her husband. They all fall in the same category. She does not see things as what I deserve. She doesn't have this mindset like the modern day mindset of I deserve this. She doesn't have that. The godly woman doesn't have that mindset. The godly woman automatically is willing to give and not even think about it. It's just part of who they are. Right? But also, what makes a godly woman attractive? And it's not the paint, it's not the braiding, it's not doing all of these things. Because a godly woman is so attractive because of her soul and her heart. That's what makes her attractive to a godly man. Now, how do I know that? As a married one. There is things that you simply cannot have in a way of a good relationship because you need the two. Now, when a woman is going to start acting this way, starting to live this way, what is the world's point of view for that woman? She's just something wrong with her. There has to be. Because she's just giving away all of her authority, all of her rights, and she should never do that. But I guarantee you, a godly woman is a whole lot happier than a worldly woman is, by a long shot. So here we have the world will oppress a godly mother. The world is oppressing godly women. Because the world is saying, do all of these things. The way that you look is most important aspect. Your appearance is first and foremost. It's a lie. Watch the commercials on TV. What is built up and what is torn down. The godly woman is never lifted up and should be. Absolutely should be. Because she is oppressed by a worldly system. Verses 13 through 16. The folly of the prince, because the people are fickle. A poor yet wise lad is better than an old and foolish king who no longer knows how to receive instruction. For he has come out of prison to become king, even though he was born poor in his kingdom. I have seen all the living under the sun throng to the side of the second lad who replaces him. There is no end to all the people, to all who were before him. Even the ones who will come later will not be happy with him. For this too is vanity and striving after wind. Solomon has got a very acute way of seeing things. And here he's saying, you end up with a ruler that's wise. After he's a ruler for a while, he becomes selfish. Wisdom goes away. So they bring in somebody new, and that somebody new, the people just love them. They think they're just fantastic. Boy, the most exciting thing that can happen to our people is that we have this new king. And it doesn't take long. And the people don't like him. We have the same thing in our politics. All excited about this person getting in, and then this person does that one thing that's contrary to what we think they should do, and now we hate everything they do. People are fickle. If people would just understand the fact that the rulers are put in place for our benefit, and sometimes that benefit is to train us, to teach us what good is because we're stuck in bad. In the same way that a godly woman is an example to everybody else. And then people can see what that really means, what a benefit it is. But the same is true for the man. A godly man has great value. In this world, there is such a need for it. So each and every one of us, whether we're a man or a woman, strive for godliness. Strive to that is how I lead my life. I live by these principles because this is what my master wants from me. I am a child of the King, and I want to serve that King in a way that is pleasing in his sight, not to earn his favor. Just like a child doesn't necessarily do what's right just to earn favor, although they kind of use it as a bribe once in a while. But they do want the approval of the parent. Think back. Even though you weren't necessarily doing it for all the right reasons, but when you got approval from the parent, that had great value. You might have been a long time before you admit it, but it had great value. The same is true with us. Are we striving for the approval of our God? Not that it gains us anything as far as rewards or blessings or any of this. No, we just want to do what he wants us to do because of who he is and because of what he has done for us. That's our desire. That's what we strive for. And that's what a godly woman does. That's what makes her a godly woman. Age, title, none of that gets you respect. Respect is earned. It's not automatic. It doesn't just come by itself. But being called a mom doesn't automatically give you respect. I know a woman, a number of years ago, had 4 kids, neglected them something fierce. Just was a horrible, horrible mom. She lost her kids to the state because they finally stepped in and took them away. Met her a number of years later, and she was talking about how it wouldn't be long and her children would turn 18 and they would be out of the foster system, and that they then would know how much she truly loved them. Like, woman, where are you coming from? You ignored them for 18 years and automatically they're going to love you? It doesn't work that way. A mother is hard work. It's 24/7 work. It doesn't just happen. It has to be worked on. But let's take that example and use that for all of us. Being a follower of Jesus Christ requires work. It's not just an automatic thing that everything just falls into place. No, it requires work. Because if we are going to be a follower of Jesus Christ, we are going to be making disciples. We don't make disciples by just knowing things instead of doing things.